The Lights Beneath Svalbard, Episode 3, Night Cycle 32. I have a habit of organizing case material chronologically, but with Station K31 that turned out to be more difficult than usual. The documents, recordings, and images I received were clearly taken from different phases of the project, shuffled, copied, and smuggled out in no particular order. Some were labeled, some were not. Some contradicted each other. But there was one anchor point that kept appearing: Night Cycle 32. The phrase surfaced in memos, in scribbled notebook margins, in the file directory of a corrupted drive image, and in a partially erased heading on a debrief transcript. Whatever happened on that night cycle was important enough that multiple people tried to write it down, and someone else tried just as hard to erase it. The third batch of material arrived not by envelope this time, but in a small cardboard box. No markings, no tape, just folded shut. It had been left in the same place as the previous deliveries, outside my door, as if my doorstep had become a designated dead drop. Inside the box were three things: a spiral notebook, water-damaged and missing its cover; a sealed plastic evidence bag containing a key card marked K31 OBS access, and a flash drive with a cracked casing labeled in faded ink NC32 primary. The key card, sadly, was only symbolic by the time it reached me. The station it once opened access to may no longer exist, or at least may no longer be reachable. But the notebook and the drive were enough. The notebook pages were warped and clumped together from moisture, but still legible. The handwriting belonged to someone whose name never appeared in full, only initials: LS. The first clear page that mentioned Night Cycle 32 began mid-sentence. They keep insisting the pulses are mechanical, but nothing man-made relocates like that. Not at this depth. It's as if the ice is circulating something, and we're only picking up parts of it when it crosses beneath us. Beneath that, in parentheses, note to self: ask Anya if she still hears the knocking at night. The time notations in the margins suggested this entry was written late in the station's operational period. Mentions of persistent headaches, frayed tempers, and a general fatigue that is not explained by workload hinted at a crew beginning to crumble under prolonged exposure to stress, and perhaps to something else. Several pages later, the handwriting changed slightly, becoming more jagged. At the top of this section, circled twice, were the words Night Cycle 32, Personal Log. LS did not write this part like a scientist. They wrote it like someone trying to get their memories on paper before they slipped away. Sleep not happening. The hum is worse tonight. It's not in the walls anymore. It's in the air. Anya swears she can feel it in her teeth. Below that, another line. We're scheduled for a new signal test at 2 o'clock. Command wants another attempt at structured pulse exchange. They still think we're talking to shifting water or gas pockets. I don't think they've really listened to the recordings. I set the notebook aside for a moment and turned to the flash drive. Whatever NC32 primary contained, it was likely the central record for that night. After some coaxing, the drive mounted. There were 4 files inside: NC32 _audio _main.wave, NC32 underscore seismic underscore log dot bin, OBS underscore room underscore cam underscore 02 dot MP4, TXT underscore FRAGMENTS dot TXT. The last one suggested someone had tried to salvage text after a data loss event. I decided to begin with the audio. When I hit play, the first thing I heard was a low, continuous tone. Not a machine hum exactly, not an engine. It was more like a distant, unsteady drone, a sound so low that it sat just at the edge of perception. The kind of noise you don't notice at first until you realize you've been clenching your jaw. Beneath the hum, voices, seismic feed stable, recording all channels. Test sequence alpha ready. There were at least 3 people in the observation room, maybe more, their overlapping speech occasionally muffled as they turned away from the microphones. The time code in the audio header indicated this began a little after 1:50. A voice, calmer, older, gave an instruction. Begin interval pulse, standard pattern, 3 short, 1 long, wait for any repeat. There was a faint click as someone triggered the impulse device, a mechanism designed to send controlled vibrations down into the lower shaft. These would travel through the ice, reflect off subsurface structures, and be read by the seismic sensors. At least, that was the theory. The first test went as expected. 3 short pulses, 1 long, then silence, apart from the underlying hum. Seconds passed. 10, 20, 30. A younger voice muttered something about nothing yet. Then faintly, a reply. 3 short pulses, 1 long. Almost identical in timing, though not in source. The returning pulses had a slightly different tonal signature. The team picked up on it immediately. See that? That's not our reflection. Delay doesn't match known propagation models. It's not bouncing, it's answering. The older voice remained steady. Log response is Event 32A. Prepare second series inverted pattern. They wanted to see if whatever they were dealing with could recognize not just repetition, but variation. The second test began. 1 long, 3 short. The team waited. This time, the response came faster. 1 long, 3 short. The hum in the background grew louder, or maybe that was my imagination, projecting menace where there was only mechanical noise. But then something happened that was not imagination. The third test was announced. Now send nothing. Do not transmit. I repeat, do not transmit. We wait and see if it initiates. Silence. No pulses were sent. For several seconds, the audio log contained only the hum and the faint rustle of clothing and equipment. And then 3 short pulses, 1 long. Unprompted, no signal had gone down the shaft. No mechanical impulse had been triggered topside. Yet something below transmitted the exact pattern back to them. One of the technicians swore under their breath. Another said, "It responded before we tapped." On the notebook page, that line had been underlined 3 times. I replayed that moment several times, listening carefully. There was no click from their machinery before the pulses, no sign they'd accidentally activated it. The seismic response had come entirely on its own. At that point in the recording, the atmosphere in the observation room changed. The voices grew quieter, more cautious. A decision had been made, not stated out loud, but audible in the way people stepped more lightly, as if afraid of being overheard. The older voice again, "All right, no further active pulses. Passive observation only. See what it does, unaided." They wanted to know how this thing, whatever it was, behaved when left alone. A long stretch of audio followed. At first, nothing much happened. The background hum persisted. Occasionally, there were faint, irregular tremors, the usual noise of ice under stress. The team murmured to each other in half sentences. Someone yawned. Someone else checked a monitor. Then at around 2:23, the tone of the seismic channel altered. Not louder, but richer, layered. Instead of clear, spaced pulses, there came a steady ripple of micro-vibrations. Not random, structured. They rose and fell in amplitude, forming a pattern so rapid that it was nearly indecipherable to the human ear. A technician remarked, "It's increasing frequency. That's not random noise anymore." Another voice, "Run it through the pattern filter, see if anything matches." There was a pause as someone switched systems, then a soft exclamation. "It's mirroring the last 10 minutes of our own signals, compressed." Later analysis notes in the TXT_FRAGMENT file put it more plainly. "We sent it a few minutes of basic pulse sequences. It sent back those same sequences, but sped up, folded together, overlaid, like it was showing us it remembered everything." Memory. Not just mimicry, not simple reflection. This thing was storing, processing, and retransmitting structured data. The quakes continued, weaving in and out, forming complex interference patterns. Occasionally, a familiar motif reappeared, the 3 short, 1 long, but now embedded inside larger sequences, like a word placed within a longer sentence. Then something changed. In the audio, the hum faded slightly, as if some device had powered down. One of the team members commented, "Do you feel that? Pressure just dropped." Another replied, "No readings changed on my display." Yet several people acknowledged the same sensation, a subtle, almost imperceptible shifting in the air, as if the room itself had exhaled. Just then, the seismic channel went quiet, completely. No pulses, no noise, even the usual low-level static seemed to vanish. "Did we lose the feed?" someone asked. "No, sensors are online. It just stopped." That silence lasted a full 40 seconds. Then came something that didn't belong on any seismic channel at all. A sound, not a knock, not a pulse. A faint, distorted modulation, like a voice carried through layers of interference. The words were unclear at first, smeared by distance and whatever medium it was traveling through. But by slowing the recording and filtering out the background noise, the staff managed to identify at least one repeated pattern. The logs don't agree on exactly what it sounded like. Some heard numbers, others claimed to hear syllables, fragments of language. But in LS's notebook, one line stood alone, written much later, the ink darker than the surrounding text. On replay, it sounded like someone trying to speak underwater. We all thought we heard our own names. Whether that perception was real or a psychological projection, I can't say. But a handwritten annotation in the corner offered another detail. Sound originating from below sensor threshold, not from the station, not from us. The recording ended abruptly at 2:37 with a sudden jump in volume, a sharp, crystalline crack that overloaded the microphones. After that, the file was corrupted. The OBS_ROOM_CAM_02 video file filled in some of the missing context. The footage showed the observation room, a handful of people seated around consoles, monitors casting blue-green glows across their faces. On the wall, a large display showed moving seismic traces and thermal overlays. As the logs described, there were fluctuations, then the long stillness. Everyone in the room froze, eyes fixed on the main screen. When the distorted voice began, reactions varied. Some leaned closer, trying to parse the sound. One person pulled off their headset as though the noise hurt. Then came the crack. The lights in the observation room flickered. Dust drifted from the ceiling. A hairline fracture appeared along one corner of the wall, not from above, but, according to a later structural note, from below. The video ended on a still frame of the team staring upward, as though the noise had come from somewhere overhead. But the seismic logs said otherwise. Below. Always below. Back in the notebook, the Night Cycle 32 log ended with a short, tightly written paragraph. No theatrics, no speculation. Just a cold summary. Conclusion. Whatever resides beneath us is no longer simply reacting to stimulus. It has started to anticipate it. It knew when we would listen. It responded before we could speak. I don't think we're the ones conducting the experiment anymore. Underneath, in smaller handwriting, request to suspend further tests denied. And then, one last line, almost an afterthought. They want us to go down there again.